is this important? Let's try and understand for a bit. The government of India in the year 2005, the government of India made a committee called the National or Administrative Reforms Commission. It is called the second ARC because the first ARC was made in 1960s when it was the Indira Gandhi government. It was in 1960s. Now, the second one was created in the year 2005. Why is this important? This was a committee formed or a commission formed mainly to tell the government how to improve the government administration. There is no law in India that says that such a commission has to be appointed time and time again. But just that government wanted to appoint it, thinking that it is a good time to make certain changes and see how we can improve our administration in the country. This commission, as a result, gave a total of 15 reports. This commission gave a total of 15 reports on various topics. Now, the problem is you cannot read and remember all the reports because if you see, thousands of recommendations have been given in total in the 15 reports. So, you can't remember all of them, obviously. So, what you are expected to do is you're expected to read and remember important recommendations. So, what we will be doing in this class, we will be taking up some important reports and important recommendations, what they have suggested on various topics, and discuss them. How is it important for the examination point of view? Usually, there is almost no chance that UPSC will ask you directly what did the second ARC say on this matter or that matter. So, usually, they will not ask you what did the ARC say. However, the recommendations that they gave are extremely important for you to write in suggestions or reforms. Write in suggestions, way forward. For example, let's say there is a question that talks about how should how can the government improve the working of the police reforms, etc. When you have these kind of questions, police reforms, etc., you can write about what the second ARC suggested, how to improve the working of the police. On the other hand, let's assume when the question is how to improve the working of civil services in India, you may turn to the recommendations given by the second ARC. If the question is about how to resolve extremist movements in India like Naxal movement, or how to better resolve disputes in India between different states, in the suggestions, you can quote what the second ARC has suggested. This is where second ARC becomes important. It enriches your mains answers. You will not find second ARC question in the prelims examination. It is not a part of the prelims syllabus. In the mains also, there's a very, very little chance that you will get a direct question. Directly, it will not be asked, tell us what the second ARC said. No. The question will mainly be about something else, some other topic on which the second ARC has given the report. And then in the suggestion, you can write about that report. That is how it usually works, and this is why it is actually important. Now, the second ARC, as I said, it was established in the year 2005. Who was the chairman? Veerappa Moily was the chairman, a Congress leader at that time, Congress minister also, Veerappa Moily. You will see today most of the recommendations of the second ARC have not been accepted by the government. Some of them are recommendations where government has worked towards. Some of them are recommendations which the judiciary has forcefully implemented. But a lot of recommendations, most of the recommendations from the side of the second ARC have not been implemented by the government for various reasons. First, maybe the government does not like them. Maybe the government thinks it will reduce their power, so why to accept these recommendations? And secondly, the other reason is, understand this, who formed this second ARC? Which government created the second ARC? The second ARC was established by the Congress government, right, when they were in power. So there's a very little chance that the BJP government would say, oh, we will accept recommendations given by a Congress formed commission. because that is how usually the politics in India works now. So that is also one of the reasons why you may not see a lot of recommendations of this committee or commission being accepted by the government. These are the 15 reports. These are the title of the 15 reports. The first report was on right to information. Then there was a report on unlocking human capital, crisis management, ethics and governance, improving public law and order, local governance in India, capacity building for conflict resolution, then combating terrorism, social capital, personal administration, e-governance. All these are different reports. Total of 15 they were given. You don't have to remember the name of the report. Don't worry. Don't have to remember the name of the report. We will now start our discussion one by one about the recommendations that they gave, and we will see, are they good recommendations? Are they something that you also like? Can you quote them in the exam? There may be some recommendation that you don't agree to. That is absolutely fine. They gave recommendations from their point of view. If you don't like some of these recommendations, absolutely fine. Not really a problem with that. Okay. First recommendation is on the RTI. Now, the first report that they gave was the RTI. The recommendation that they suggested about the RTI law, some of these we discussed in the RTI chapter, if you remember. They suggested repeal the Official Secrets Act. Remember, we had discussed about the Official Secret Act, OSA. Second ARC said it should be repealed. Why? Because it is misused by the government to hide information. Especially when you file an RTI, the government does not want to give you information. What does the government do? Government hides the information by calling it an official secret. So first recommendation they gave, repeal the OSA. Very simple recommendation. Government has not done that so far. Then another important recommendation. They suggested at least 1% funds from the government's flagship government programs should be used to update records. Now, please understand, what do you mean by flagship government programs? Flagship government programs are the main government schemes which the government usually publicizes, tells everyone. Let's say Manrega. Let's say Swachh Bharat. Let's say right to food or food security program. So big government schemes for which the government usually pays a lot of attention, gives a lot of money. The suggestion is whatever budget is given to these schemes, take out at least 1% of that and use it to update records. Update records as in computerize the records, make it digital. Remember when we were discussing the RTI, we discussed one of the problems in the records is it is just not kept in a digital manner. So it's difficult to retrieve information. Now, this has obviously not been accepted by the government. This has obviously not been accepted by the government. Shivam, this is the correct name of Manrega. Don't worry. I'm not written it wrong. So, the problem here is, understand, let's say of Manrega, the budget is 80,000 crore. Let's take a general assumption, okay? Let's say the budget is 80,000 crore. Now, the problem is, let's say you say 1% of this government should spend on updating of record. 1% of this is how much? 800 crore is 1%. Now, if you add up 1% of all these government schemes, it becomes a humongous amount. And the government says even 1% of all these schemes is such a huge amount, we cannot just spend it on something, we rather spend it on some other government scheme. And governments anyways have not been very keen on being very good on RTI. Why would they want to give out information? They are happy if the information is delayed. So that suggestion that we should go ahead and we should at least ensure that the scheme has, or at least 1% of the scheme should be spent on updating the records, the government doesn't want to do that because again, they are not that interested. Then they suggested at least half of information commissioners to be non-civil service background. We discussed about this in the RTI chapter. One of the reasons why the Central Information Commission may not work properly is all of them are usually civil servants, so they side with the government rather than holding the government accountable, holding the government responsible. So as a result of this, what happens is, if the people are from non-civil service backgrounds, if people are not related to the government, you expect them to be more unbiased. That is a suggestion. Accepted? No, obviously not accepted. Clear provisions to include NGOs, again, not done so far. Why clear provisions? Because right now, what is the problem? The problem is the law says substantially financed NGOs. The law says substantially financed NGOs. The law does not say how much financing is required. The law doesn't say how much are we talking about. It just says substantially financed NGOs. Then, independent authorities for grievance redressal. What do you mean by this? Right now, the second appeal that you make is to the Central Information Commission. Then you can't go anywhere. They themselves are kind of under the government only, so they can't pressurize the government. They can't really do anything. So if you really have to make the law strict, if you really have to make sure that people are getting information that they want from the government, then have a proper independent authority for grievance redressal. Have an authority that can actually resolve complaints from the people, take up the complaints from the government or of the government, and then try and see if there's a solution to that. These are some of the recommendations that the committee gave on how to improve the RTI. Then, create a roadmap for bringing legislature and judiciary under the RTI. After their suggestion, now we have discussed judiciary is under the RTI partially. But again, this is not what the government did. This was done by the Chief Justice of India, right? This was done by Chief Justice of India, not the government of India. Legislature, that is a parliament, is still not completely under RTI. So you cannot file an RTI to the parliament as such, asking what the parliament is doing, how are they working, what issues are they discussing, etc. You can't, or you still don't have legislature under the RTI. On the other hand, judiciary is under RTI partially because, again, only the Chief Justice of India, you can ask questions to them only on very few basis. But the other parts of judiciary is still not under the RTI. And again, this was a recommendation accepted not by the government, but by the judiciary, partially. Then, non-confidential files should be made public under RTI. Now, let's try and understand this. In America, there is a law. The law is, let's say the government of America says today that this particular file is confidential. Okay? The American government declares that a particular file is confidential. They declare it today. Now that means after 50 years, today it is confidential. Once 50 years are over, 50, that file will automatically become non-confidential and people can read it. That is the law in America. When the government declares a file as confidential, it is only for 50 years. Once the 50 years are over, the file automatically comes out in the public domain. In India, there is no such law. In India, the government can keep the file confidential for as long as they want. The files about the death of Subhash Chandra Bose are still confidential. Files about the death of Lal Bahadur Shastri are still confidential. So right now in India, we do not have this kind of a provision, which is what the second ARC has suggested. They have suggested that confidential files are fine, but keep on making files non-confidential, keep on bringing them under RTI, so that to increase people's confidence in the transparency of the government. That was the first report, that is the RTI report or the report on RTI. These were the suggestions that they have given. As you can see, most of the suggestions not really accepted by the government. The government says that no, these are not correct, or they don't like it, or whatever. But so far, we do not have such provisions. Vivek says, why don't we have any such framework? Vivek, my answer will be the same. Why would the government do something until you pressurize the government? What does the government has to gain from this? Governments in a democracy, or any government for that matter, not just democracy, will do something if they have something to gain from it, right? In India, people are busy demanding other things other than demanding that no, you should also bring these files in the public domain. Only when the government thinks that doing something will result in, let's say, more votes or people being happier, they will do it. People are not even aware of this, so why would the government take a chance? Then, the other report where the RTI gave recommendations, or second ARC, sorry, gave recommendations, is called unlocking human capital. In simple words, how to make the best form or the best use of government, or how to make the government most efficient. First, rationalize the size of the government. Now, what do you mean by rationalize the size? See, the government has a very unique problem. One problem is some government departments are overloaded. There are government departments which might require 100 people, but they have 300 people. Then there are some government departments which are understaffed, where they require 500 people, but they only have 200 people, like government teachers, etc. So some departments have a lot more people than they should, some departments have lesser people than they should. Now, the problem is, if you actually see, the rationalization should be done so that there is adequate number of people in every government department, so that the government department work does not suffer. Now, I have a suggestion for you here. When you write in the mains examination suggesting something that the size should increase, size should decrease, I have a suggestion for you. Rather than writing size should increase, size should decrease, always say rationalize the size. It makes you look smart. Why? Because see, the word rationalize includes everything. It includes making the size smaller if required, making the size bigger is if required. So rather than you having to explain, you can be smart and just write one single word. Sir, I think rationalization should be done. Rather than saying it should increase, it should decrease, because that covers everything. So rather than saying increase or decrease, just say rationalize, and you will be like, this is the smartest guy ever. Let's give him rank one. So basically, rationalizing the size of the government, having as many people as are required. It may be high, it may be low, doesn't matter. But have the size of government or the department that is required, not more, not less. Then, recasting allocation of business rule. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Tell me this. If I ask you this question, who has the powers to form rules of transaction of business of the government of India? What is the answer to this? Who has the power to form rules for transaction of business of the government of India? Yes, as most of you know, the power is with the President of India. The President of India has the power to form rules for transaction of the business of the government. Now, what does it mean? What do you mean by allocation of business rules? In simple terms, allocation of business rule means which government department will do what. Which government department will handle this responsibility, which government department will handle with some other responsibility. I'll give you an example. I can give you an example. So when Indira Gandhi was the prime minister, that was a time that cartoonists or people who used to make political cartoons in the newspaper, satirists, they used to make amazing cartoons. I'm not saying that they don't make cartoons now, but they used to make amazing cartoons back then. So there was a cartoon that became very famous at the time of Indira Gandhi. So that cartoon was, there was an officer that was sitting on a file on a desk. Some files were lying on the table, and the designation in his office was Director General of the Department of Putting Glue on the Stamps of the Envelope. That was his post. Director General of the Department of Putting Glue on the Stamps to be put on the envelope. That was the officer. Now, what were they trying to say? What was that cartoon all about? So that cartoon was all about the fact that at the time of Indira Gandhi, what happened was, and it happened with other governments also, when the government sees that there are not enough jobs in the country, when people are just don't have jobs, they're unemployed, what does the government do? If the government wants to please the people, make them happy, they will then give them government job only. That okay, if you don't have job, then come to us, work for us only. We will take a loan, we will give you the salary. So when government recruits a lot of people, it's not always a positive sign. Please understand this. Especially for low level posts, when the government recruits a lot of people for clerks and these kind of posts, it's not a very positive sign, because it means that in the private sector there are just not enough jobs and people are actually coming here. Government is thinking they'll have to do that. So The joke was at the time of Indira Gandhi, there were so many government departments that if, for example, the government had to send a letter, then one department will buy the pen, second department will buy the paper, third department will write the letter, fourth department will fold the letter, fifth department will put the envelope, sixth department will put the stamp, and seventh department will post the letter. That was a joke at the time of Indira Gandhi, that we have so many government departments that you have allocated, because you have so many people, so you have to give them some job, right? If you ask someone, what do you do in the government? They should have an answer. So the answer is, I buy glue for the stamp. The answer is, I buy paper for the letter. I buy pen. So I'm not saying the same situation exists today, but even today, if you look at how the government works, the system or the work is fragmented in such a manner that many government departments, half of the work is done by one department, half is done by some other, half is done by someone else. So if one of them is absent today, the work will not happen. Like if out of the 7 departments, one of them is absent who did not buy the pen, the letter will not go today. Why? Because who else will buy the pen? No one else will buy the pen. Or someone who had to buy the glue, he is absent, then the letter will not go today. That is how the government departments, I'm not saying they work even today every single time, but that is how they used to do. Now the situation is, it should be made better. The allocation of business should be made better. It should not be that the work is fragmented in such a manner. We should not be dependent on every single individual. That is a suggestion from their end. Also, I'll apologize for one thing in advance. In this class, you might see a lot of photos that you may not be able to understand. If you don't understand, no problem. Ignore. Not a part of your syllabus. Okay? If you understand, great. Be happy, have a laugh. If you're not able to understand, don't worry. Not a part of your syllabus anyway. Okay? So don't pay a lot of attention there. Pay attention to here and what I'm saying. Okay? Don't worry about that. Let it be. This is just time pass. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay. Anu is asking purpose of the image. Anu, purpose of the image is that not everyone is like you. You are a very sincere student, so you can learn without any distraction. But most of the people here are not as sincere as you. So they require something. So that is why. For you, you can just look at this. Look at this part. Okay? Ignore the other part. Don't worry. Okay? Anyway, let's come back. So, other suggestion. The suggestion from the ERC is simplify the government processes. Simplify the process of the government. See, as I said, the government processes, although it is a continuous process, every single year you can say the government process simplifying time by time. It's a continuous thing. You cannot wake up one day and say, today the government is simplified. No, it's a continuous process. You have to improve this every single time, and the government is doing that. We have discussed in the past few years how RTI has become online, Lokpal online, CVC online, getting a learner driving license made online, MyGov, etc. So government processes are becoming simpler. That is what the suggestion is. You should simplify the government processes even for a common man. The problem here is, see, when you simplify a government process, what is the problem? The problem is bureaucrats lose their power. Understand something. See, why do bureaucrats have so much power? Because the government process is difficult, so you call them for their help. As simple as that. If the government process is all easy, then why would you need help from someone powerful? When you tell someone, when you tell your friends, tell your relatives that I'm preparing for the IAS exam, whatever their reaction is, internally they are all thinking only one thing. They are thinking, great, when you become the IAS officer, I'll call you to get my work done. Everyone is thinking that, trust me. Except your parents who really want the best for you. Even your best of friends are thinking that when you told them you're preparing for IAS. All the people thought, oh, great, he or she will become the IAS. Now our work will be done. We'll just call them to get our train ticket confirmed. We'll call them if someone stops us at the red light. We'll call them. That is the only thing that they are thinking, trust me. Why? Because the government processes give the bureaucrats the power. So it's about simplifying the government process, which, trust me, will not really happen. Simplification of the government processes will take the powers away. Why are the lawyers powerful? Why don't you go and fight a case? You all are good at arguing. Indians are great at arguing. You argue in the class, you argue with your friends, you argue with your lover, you argue with everyone. Why don't you go to the court and argue your case? No, because there you have to go through the law. You have to require a lawyer for that. Why do lawyers have power? Lawyers have power because it's a complex process. If it would have been so easy in the court, you go and speak your mind, you would not require lawyers. So simplified processes go against the bureaucratic powers. Simplified process goes against the power of lawyers. No one wants to simplify the process, trust me. And when you become the IS officer, you will also not want to simplify the process. You want to simplify it today, but later on you will not want to simplify the process because you are here. Satyam, no, I'm not planning to send you to jail. I'm hoping when I say all these things, at least one of you is a lawyer who will help me out. That is the only thing I'm hoping for. If the time comes, then I'll also call you. Remember, you become an IAS. Okay. So Athar will help me out. Athar is a lawyer. Perfect. Thanks, Athar. So moving on. So then there's overlapping jurisdiction of ministries and agencies that has to be checked. Let's try and understand a couple of things. We already have discussed about CVC and Lokpal. We have discussed about CVC and Lokpal, how there is duplication of function that they do. Similar kind of jobs. Let me give you one more example. There are three separate ministries of the government of India. Let's try and understand that. We have a Ministry of Panchayati Raj. We have a Ministry of Panchayati Raj. Then we have a Ministry of Rural Development. Then we have a Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Now imagine there's a government scheme. There's a government scheme that the government has introduced for a rural area where there's a tribal population. Now the question is, which ministry will handle that scheme? There's no clarity. Will the Panchayat Raj Ministry handle the scheme because they will say there's a Panchayat there also? Will the Rural Development Ministry handle the scheme? They will say, no, there's the rural area. Or will the Tribal Affairs Ministry handle the scheme saying it is a tribal area? So there is a lot of this give and take. Every ministry wants to handle the scheme. Why? Every ministry wants to handle the scheme not because they want to work very hard, but with scheme comes money. If, for example, a scheme has been started by the government worth 1,000 crore rupees, means that department gets funds of 1,000 crore rupees. And that department, the minister, the people in power, they decide how to then go ahead and start implementing that scheme. Even 0.5% here and there, 0.1% here and there can make a lot of difference. That is why there is duplication of agencies. We saw with Lokpal CVC also, we saw with this also. So suggestion is we should reduce or have proper jurisdiction of ministries. I'll tell you something very interesting. In Indian polity, all of you would have read, there is a limit on the number of ministers that we can have in the government, right? I'm sure in Indian polity, all of you would have read this. There is a limit on how many ministers can we have. What is the limit? 15% of the Lok Sabha, right? The limit is 15% of Lok Sabha, everyone knows. But do you know the big loophole here? The big loophole here is there is a limit on number of ministers, but no limit on number of ministries. Are you understanding? You have limited the number of ministers, right? But one minister can handle 5 ministries. There is no compulsion on that. One minister can handle 10 ministries also. No compulsion on that. So you have reduced the number of ministers, maybe, but the number of ministries are still very high. For every ministry, you will have separate bureaucrats. Every ministry has separate people. So the size of the government still remains big. At the top, you might say the number of ministers are limited. Fine. But every ministry has their own big size, right? If Mr. Vaishnav is the railway minister also, if he's handling IT also, although he's a minister, single minister for both these, but below him in both of these, there will be separate teams, right? So again, there is still a lot of ministries that need reduction in sizes. There are still a lot of agencies which do a very common kind of a thing as other agency, and there's a lot of overlapping that should be reduced. Now comes the next report. This is one of the most important reports given by the second ARC. Ethics in Governance. Extremely, extremely important report. In this report, they had suggested how can we improve governance, or how can we improve politics in general in India? How can we make our governance and politics more ethical, basically? Very important suggestions. First suggestion, have partial state funding of elections. What does it mean? Elections in India, fighting elections is a very expensive affair. Let's imagine there's a person very intelligent, very intelligent. Let's assume me. Just kidding. Let's say there's a person very intelligent, very hardworking, someone who wants to do a lot of good things. Okay. But he doesn't have money. So now he goes and fights election. How will people come to know this is a good guy? Let me vote for him. Because if you have to tell people that I am contesting election, please vote for me, you will have to spend money, right? You have to go from door to door, give ad, print some pamphlet, have 10 people working for you who will advertise you. Basically, fighting election in India is absolutely not the job of someone who doesn't have deep pockets. You can win your society elections without money, although not always. For that also you need to give tea and samosa to everyone. But in most cases, society elections, small scale election, you can still win. Class monitor elections, you can win. But when you are talking about elections at the Lok Sabha or Legislative Assembly, you have lakhs of people to go to campaign. You require money. Now, if someone doesn't have money, that becomes a problem. That is why elections in India are not equal for everyone in reality. Those who are rich, those who have resources can spend more money, can reach out to more people. Obviously, they'll have a big advantage over you. What is the suggestion? Suggestion is have partial state funding of election. Now, how will partial state funding work? Means the government should help everyone who is fighting election at least partially. I'll give you an example of what partial may mean. It may mean don't give them money, give them resources. For example, let's say government says everyone who is fighting elections, we will give them 10,000 liters of petrol. Let's say something like this. Or everyone who is fighting election, we will give them a government ground for free for rally. Government ground for rallying. Free tent, etc. You go and advertise. Then the government might say, okay, we will give all of you one ad in the paper. We'll pay for one ad in the paper for you. You publish whatever you want. Something like that. It may be about partial state funding. Now, what is the problem here? Why can you not implement this in India? In India, the problem why you can't implement this is India has a multi-party system. Now that you see, oh, free petrol, let me also fight elections. Because that is how people think, right? Oh, this is free, let me fight election. Remember? Remember when Jio announced, sorry, remember when Jio announced we are giving free of cost SIM, free of cost data? Remember the long lines just because you wanted to get a free Jio SIM? Remember that? So free in India, go anywhere on the road, free food is distributing. Look at the line. And the line is not just about poor people. Everyone wants to be in that line because everyone likes free. Also, you want to do something always which you're not supposed to do. I'll give you an example. If I tell you this is a wall, don't touch the wall because it has been just painted. What is the first thing you will do? Tell me very honestly. I'll tell you this is a wall. Don't touch the wall. It is painted right now. What will you do? The first thing you will do. Because you don't trust anyone, so you will touch it, right? You will touch it because you're like, oh, let me see, because I am different. So you always do something that you're not supposed to do. That's human nature. There are some people who are saying, I will prevent others from touching it. Amazing. I wish I could tell your parents how lucky they are, but not all of them are lucky like that. If you look at how most of the people will react, you will first touch the wall and see, right? So you don't do something which you are supposed to do. You are more enticed towards something you're not supposed to do. Similarly, if you introduce this free concept, we have multi-party system in India. Everyone can fight elections. In your own constituency, you might think only 3, 4 parties are fighting election. But go on the day of the voting, see your EVM. There are so many people who are fighting election you may never have even heard of. They're all fighting elections. And then it becomes free, it becomes even better for you. Then the other part of issue is that does the government have so much money to give all these things free? Not really. Again, money remains a big issue in India. Now, there might be a solution to this. For example, the government might say, we will only give this free to recognized parties. We'll only give this free to those parties which are over 10 years old. Something like that may be a solution, but at least so far it has not happened. So far, we have not seen this happening. Next suggestion, they have tightened the anti-defection law. Let the president or the governor decide. I know all of you have read the anti-defection law in Indian polity. All of you are very well aware of what is anti-defection law. So I don't need to explain that to you. If you don't know this, I will not go into detail of this. I will just tell you one single line if you don't know this. The law says if you are an MP or MLA or MLC from one political party, you leave that party, you go to the other party, you will be disqualified. As simple as that. If you change your party as the MP, MLA, you will be disqualified. As simple as that. This is the anti-defection law. There are other pointers, but let's not go into there. Now, for anti-defection law, who takes the decision to disqualify the member? Who gives the decision that you are disqualified? The decision is taken by the presiding officer. It is the presiding officer that will take the decision. Guys, I will give you a suggestion here. I have a suggestion from my end. Almost everyone, when I asked this question, almost everyone wrote Lok Sabha Speaker. Almost everyone, except a few. Please do not write Lok Sabha Speaker. The correct answer has to be presiding officer. Please write that. Why? Because for Rajya Sabha, it cannot be the Lok Sabha Speaker, right? So you have to use a generic word that applies to everyone. Presiding officer automatically means Lok Sabha Speaker in case of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha Chairperson in case of Rajya Sabha. So please make sure that you use generic words that may be used for center, state, any of the house. That will always be better for you. Because if you just write speaker, Lok Sabha Speaker, the examiner may think that you are not right. Okay. Now, let's take a simple example here. Tell me this right now at the present situation. Let's talk about the center government or the Parliament of India. What are the chances that a member from BJP, MP from BJP, would resign and go to Congress as compared to what are the chances that a Congress MP will resign and come to the BJP? What do you think? Usually what happens? What will be the most or more preferred for the members? Would you think someone from the BJP will go to the Congress? Very little. Why? Because when you jump towards the winning side. As simple as that. You jump towards the side that is in power. As simple as that. If tomorrow Congress comes to power, you will see the opposite happening. So it is very common that you will see jumping towards the side who is right now in power. Now, let's take this example. A Congress member of parliament resigns from the Congress, joins the BJP. The law says that the member should be disqualified by the Lok Sabha Speaker because he's a Lok Sabha member, right? Now, who is the Lok Sabha Speaker? From which party? He's from the BJP only, right? Would the Lok Sabha Speaker, who is from the BJP, want to resign a member who came to his own party, BJP? Would they want to do that? Not really. So they will try and delay it as much as possible. They will try to find an excuse not to disqualify the member as much as possible. So it becomes a big problem here. Because there is no time limit that is involved. That is also a big problem. There is no time limit within which you have to decide. In Manipur, there was a case in which an opposition member joined the ruling party. Rather than being disqualified, they were made the minister also. No decision was taken about the disqualification. The Supreme Court had to intervene that no, this should not happen. This is where the problem now starts. For anti-defection law, because you have decided that the person who will take decision at the end of the day does belong to a political party, however neutral the speaker is supposed to be, but at the end of the day, they do belong to a political party. This is what makes the problem serious here. So, what is the suggestion? The suggestion is rather than the presiding officer deciding it, why not have the president or the governor decide? Now, you might say, but sir, they are also unbiased, they are also biased. But remember, when the president or the governor decides on the disqualification, they decide on the advice of the Election Commission of India, not on the recommendation of the Council of Ministers. Like for any other matter apart from anti-defection law, anyway, it is the president of India only who gives the order for disqualification. And for that, the president depends on the advice given by the Council of Ministers or be given by the Election Commission of India. So in this case, also Election Commission of India will give the advice. That's a suggestion. Again, just imagine, would the ruling party accept this suggestion? Why? Why would any ruling party accept this suggestion? You come to politics, you come to power not to give away power. No one comes to power to dissolve the power. Everyone comes to power to consolidate power. As simple as that. You do not become senior in the college thinking that now I will treat my juniors very well. You want to do what your seniors did to you. Okay, just kidding, don't do that. But if you actually see, that is a more favorable option as per the second ARC, that president or the governor should decide rather than letting the presiding officer decide because they may be biased towards their party. Another suggestion is to amend the disqualification criteria for MPs or MLAs. So, this has happened partially, again, because of the Supreme Court only, not because of the government. When this report was given, the law was if you are given a jail of 2 years or more, you can still appeal. Within 90 days, you can appeal. You will not be disqualified if your appeal goes to a higher court. Now, what is the case? Now, as you saw in case of Rahul Gandhi also, if you are given 2 years or more of punishment, you will be automatically, immediately disqualified. So that has been accepted partially, but by the judiciary, not by the government. Which was this case, by the way? What was the Supreme Court case in which the Supreme Court said that you have to be disqualified immediately? Yes. Athar proving to us he's a good lawyer. Athar has given the answer. Okay, what was the case? Yes, Satyam. What was the name of the case? 2013 case. 2013, guys, not IR Kolo. 2013 case, Lily Thomas case. Lily Thomas case, remember? Lily Thomas case 2013, where the Supreme Court had said disqualification has to be immediate. Also, one suggestion, you might see multiple cases by the same name, Lily Thomas. Why? Lily Thomas was a very famous Supreme Court lawyer, just passed a few months back, very famous Supreme Court lawyer who filed a lot of cases about improving politics in India. So you might see multiple cases by the name Lily Thomas case. This is the 2013 case that we are referring to. This has been accepted partially, but again only by the judiciary. Then, false declaration in election should lead to disqualification. I'll give you an example. 2014, the elections were happening. Now, when you're fighting elections, before you contest the elections, every member or every candidate who is contesting the election has to sign up, has to fill a complete form talking about how much money do they have, how much property they have, and how much education qualification they have. So basically, Smriti Irani had written in her form that she has a degree from Yale University. So she wrote in a form she had a degree from Yale University. Now Yale, one of the most premier universities in the entire world. Later on, someone found out that she does not have a university, she does not have a degree from the Yale University. So a question was asked, how are you claiming this? So she said, I attended a 3-day workshop of Yale University. So that is why I wrote this. Now, obviously, attending a 3-day workshop or a small course does not mean that you have a degree from that institute. So it was kind of a false declaration that was made. So these kind of things are not taken very seriously by the election commission, at least so far. The suggestion is these false election declarations should lead to disqualification, should result in you not being able to fight the elections again. That is a suggestion. That is how we will be able to improve people's participation in governance. That is how we can have people which are much, much more true in their governance. Now, what exactly is this? In 1994, the UK government formed a committee. That committee is famous world over right now. That committee was called the Nolan Committee. Not Christopher Nolan, those who are Hollywood fans, not Christopher Nolan, just the Nolan Committee. Mr. Nolan was a member of the British Parliament. This committee was formed to give suggestions of what principles to keep in mind for a good, successful public life. This committee is renowned around the world by the name of Nolan Committee on Principles of Public Life. Principles of Public Life. Why am I showing this to you? Because the second ARC suggested that the ministers and the public servants in India should follow the Nolan principles of public life. Now, why is this important? It is important because number one, UPSC in the ethics paper, GS4 paper, a few years back, asked this question. The question was, what are the principles suggested by the Nolan Committee to be followed in public life? So this has been asked in GS4 as well. Also, this is a very common question that you may get asked in the interview as well by the interviewers. That what do you think are the principles of public life? How a public servant should behave? Or in other words, what are the qualities that a public servant should exhibit? All of these can be answered by Nolan Committee principles. Now, please understand something. Let's assume that the UPSC asks you a question about the Nolan Committee, right? Now, if you see the words, they have used 7 words to define the good principles of public life. If I don't show you these 7 words right now, and I ask you, what are the good principles of public life? Most probably you will say these things only. So it's not that they have said something groundbreaking. If you see, what have they said? They have said accountability, honesty, leadership, integrity, selflessness. So it's the same kind of a thing. It's not something different. But if you are quoting a committee in the answer, or if the question is specifically about a committee, then in the answer you have to use the exact word that they are using. You can't use a synonym and say, oh, it means the same thing. No, that is where the difference starts. So if you are, let's say, quoting the committee in your answer in the interview stage or in the mains answer, then you have to use exactly these 7 words only. If you are writing from your own mind, great, you can go here and there in 1 or 2 words, not really a problem with that. But if you are using your own language, then please don't use the name Nolan Committee principles. Only use this name when you are very sure these are the 7 words that were used. Please use this. My suggestion is, please make sure that you try and remember this. What are these? Very simple, easy, all of you know, nothing that I have to explain. First, selflessness. So your orders given should not be selfish in nature. You should give orders in the interest of the public rather than your own interest. You will have a lot of powers, but use it for the public. You have to show integrity. Integrity means practicing what you preach. There is a story about Mahatma Gandhi which I'm very sure is false, but I'm sure you would have heard the story about Mahatma Gandhi and the sugar. So the story is that there was a mother who was worried because her son used to eat a lot of sugar. She brought her son to Mahatma Gandhi. She asked Mahatma Gandhi, please tell my son not to eat sugar. He will listen to you. Mahatma Gandhi told the lady, okay, come back after 1 month. So they went away. They came back after 1 month. And after 1 month, Mahatma Gandhi says, beta, don't eat sugar. It is bad for your health. And then he says, okay, go now. So the lady got surprised. She asked Mahatma Gandhi that if you had to say this only, that don't eat sugar, you should have said this 1 month ago. Why wait for 1 month? So the answer was, apparently, I also used to eat a lot of sugar earlier. In this 1 month, I stopped eating sugar. I first saw if it is possible or not, and then I could preach it. That is the story. I'm very sure not a true story. This story has been attributed to many people. Even in the chat, I see people giving different names. Someone saying Ramana Maharishi story, someone saying Gautam Buddha story, someone saying other story. So again, don't worry, you don't have to quote the story. As long as you understand the idea of integrity, my job is done. I'll tell you my favorite quote, by the way. I'll tell you my favorite quote that I use a lot. You should not use that in the exam. My favorite quote is, never let truth come in the way of a good story. I always follow this. Okay. So never let truth come in the way of a good story. As long as the story is good, enjoy. So again, this is an example of what is integrity. Please don't quote any of these stories in the exam. You will not have enough word limit to start writing stories. Then the public servant should be objective. You have to display objectivity. Objectivity basically means while taking decisions, you have to take decision based on facts. You should not take decision because someone called you your friend, that you start helping them out, giving contracts to your relatives. Any decision that you take should be based on facts, who deserves it, who doesn't deserve it. Be open, be transparent, show leadership, be honest, be accountable for whatever actions you take. Basically, not something to explain here, but again, if you are using the word Nolan principles, please write exactly these 7 words only rather than writing something else. If you want to define them, you can define them in your own language. That is not a problem. But the 7 words should be these only. When we were discussing in the earlier batch, one of the people said a good way to remember is hollow IAS. If you want to use this, you can. One of the students only suggested it, so I will not take the credit for this. Someone suggested you can use it by, remember is by hollow IAS, and whatever you want to remember it by. It is important, it has been already asked. Now, other suggestions. They suggested 2 things. One of them have been done by the Supreme Court. They suggested, number one, election commission appointment should change. It has been done, but by the Supreme Court now. As you know, the Supreme Court of India has now said there will be a committee to suggest to the president about the election commission. The committee should be, as we had discussed, the Prime Minister, leader of the opposition of the Lok Sabha, and the Chief Justice of India. So again, not something that the government did, something that the Supreme Court did. On the other hand, CAG appointment still not changed. Still not changed. We had discussed about the CAG appointment issue when we were discussing about the CAG in a lot of detail. I gave you examples also. Shashikant Sharma, Rajiv Maharishi, etc. This is what they have suggested. Now, apart from this, the other suggestion, ensure that political parties also publish their accounts in public. Make sure that the political parties, although they don't come under the RTI, they should also tell the public from where are they getting the money, what is the source of their revenue, why, so that the people can decide on the basis of that. For example, I want to vote for a political party, but I want to see who is giving them money. If someone that I know is, let's say, corrupt, is giving them money, I will obviously then not vote for that party. So, in order for a person to make the correct decision when it comes to voting, especially, we have to make sure that at the end of the day, you have to force the political parties to publish their records so that it is out in the open, rather than having the political parties or giving them the option to hide it together. Has this been done? Obviously not. The idea of political parties opening up their books is impossible for them. Political parties have this reasoning that if we tell you our sources of funding, they will be harassed by other political parties. You will go to the same corporate and say, give me the money. You'll go to the same businessman, ask him to give you the money. So this publishing of accounts, auditing of the accounts of political parties, which has been suggested, will not be accepted by anyone usually. Post-poll coalitions should not be allowed without re-elections. Now, what is post-poll coalition? Let's try and understand this. Now, I'm taking an example of what happened in Maharashtra earlier. In Maharashtra, when the last elections were held, what was the scenario? Let's try and understand. So, in Maharashtra Legislative Assembly, they have 288 seats. Now, how were the elections fought? The elections were fought when two teams were fighting. One team, BJP plus Shiv Sena, was fighting the election together. Then we had the Indian National Congress and the NCP fighting the elections together. Okay. So there were two teams mainly. Let's take an example of what happened towards this side. The numbers might not be exact, but let's take a simple idea. Let's assume the BJP and Shiv Sena decided that Shiv Sena will fight elections on 128 seats and BJP will fight elections on 160 seats. Okay. A random example. Now, in these 128 seats where Shiv Sena was fighting elections, BJP did not have any candidate. On the other 160 seats, Shiv Sena did not have any candidate. Now, in these 128 seats, let us assume there is a voter who wants to vote for the BJP. Okay? There is a voter here who wants to vote for the BJP. When he wants to vote for the BJP, but he does not have a BJP candidate, the BJP told him, don't worry, vote for the Shiv Sena candidate. They are our partners. It is the same thing. Okay. So BJP voters, for example, in these 128 seats, voted for the Shiv Sena candidate. Then what happened? When the results came out, Shiv Sena, for whatever reason, right or wrong, let's not go into that, but Shiv Sena changed the side and then came this side. And these three together formed the government. These three together formed the government. This is called a post-poll coalition. When you form teams after the results have come out, this is called a post-poll coalition. When you form a team after the results have come out. The problem here is this is injustice for this voter who voted for a party because it was a friend of their own party, but then you have someone else's government. So the idea is this should not be allowed. The suggestion is, if it happens, the suggestion that they have given is, if the parties really want to change sides, then there should be re-election with these three together and this one alone. That is a suggestion, that post-poll coalitions should be allowed only after re-elections. Without re-election, the post-poll coalition should not be allowed. That is again a suggestion, because again it is a voter at the end of the day who is suffering. Voter wanted to vote for a party, but you asked the voter to vote for some other party because there was a partnership, and then the partnership got broken. So that is a problem. Other suggestion, appointment of Chief Election Commissioner. It has been done by the Supreme Court. We have discussed this. They have also suggested reform the collegium system. This you have read in polity. I will not go into detail of that. As you know, collegium system is a system to appoint judges in the Supreme Court and the High Court. There's a lot of debate over it. The government wants to change it. Supreme Court does not want to change it. I'll not go into detail of that, but this is also something that they had suggested, which has not been done. Now, the second ARC, in the same report, Ethics and Governance report only, suggested how ministers should behave. They suggested how ministers should behave. A code of ethics for ministers specifically. And it is very interesting. The first thing they said is, ministers in the Lok Sabha should keep their role as minister and constituency member as separate. What does it mean? Let's try and understand something. It has happened for a long time. By the way, before going ahead, I'll just address one thing. For some reason, many people are asking, is this not under anti-defection law? I think you have not understood anti-defection law properly. What is anti-defection law? Anti-defection law would have been if Shiv Sena member would have gone from Shiv Sena to NCP, no member is going anywhere. A party has decided to team up with some other party. This is not under anti-defection law. If a member of Shiv Sena has gone somewhere, that would have been a anti-defection law. Even those who are saying merger, that is also not correct. There is no merger. It's not that Shiv Sena has merged with another party. There is no application of anti-defection law. What is happening? None of the members have changed their side. None of the parties have merged. It is what? It is parties coming together to form the government coalition. Coalition is not under anti-defection law. So please don't be confused. It is not a case of anti-defection law. Anti-defection will apply when one person changes party, goes to other party, when some party merges, some party breaks up. Nothing like that happened. It was what? Just parties coming together to form the government, as simple as that. So please don't be confused there, okay? Let's come back to the first suggestion. So ministers who are Lok Sabha members should keep their minister work separate and constituency work separate. Now, what does it mean? I'll give you an example. Basically, you would see, and this happens with every government. I'll give you multiple examples. You will see, for example, whoever becomes a railway minister will make sure that a lot of trains now go through their state or go through their constituency. A lot of trains take the route which includes their constituency so that the people are happy. I'll give you an example. When Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav was the railway minister, it is very famous or infamous that when Lalu Prasad Yadav became the railway minister, what he did was super fast trains that are not supposed to stop at many places. Super fast trains were made to stop in almost every village in Bihar. And people became very happy. But these trains then were never super fast again because he wanted to appease people in his constituency. So you will see that a lot of trains, super fast trains at that era, started stopping in Bihar time and time again. You see right now, a lot of government projects are based in Gujarat. You see the first bullet train of India, Ahmedabad to Mumbai. A lot of big government infrastructure projects based in Gujarat. And it is a very common occurrence. At the time of Rajiv Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, lot of projects were focused specifically on Amethi, Rai Bareli to appease their constituents. Because this is not illegal. You are building infrastructure, spending, but this is not illegal. This is unethical. This is unfair for other people who deserve the same development, but it is not that they are getting that development. When ministers come from certain constituencies, they obviously want to appease that constituency more and they bring more funds there. That becomes a problem. So ministers' job should be separate from their membership of the Lok Sabha. That is a suggestion. How will it happen? I have no idea. Because at the end of the day, ministers are also appointed or they win election from somewhere, right? I don't know how will they separate this, but that is a suggestion. That minister should be separate and their constituency should be separate. Ministers should not use government sources for party or political purpose. That is done. There is a law. You cannot use government funds or government sources. In fact, Indira Gandhi got disqualified from her election in the Allahabad High Court because of this only. So, but there are loopholes that the ministers find out. But at least the idea is for your political purpose, let's say you are giving a speech or going to give a speech for your own party, you cannot use or should not go on government expenses. But that is not absolutely possible to implement. I'll give you an example. Let us talk about the Prime Minister of India, right? Now, let's say Prime Minister of India wants to go to address a rally, make a speech, especially for the BJP to ask for votes. That's a political journey. So he should not spend government money. He should spend on a helicopter, or if he wants to go on a helicopter, then the expense should be paid by the BJP. All that is fine. It is done. But if the security guards are protecting him who are paid salary by the government 24/7, that becomes a gray area. And I'm not saying the security guard should be taken back, but that is a very gray area. You can never ensure that 100% of the money is spent by political party only. There will always be some part that will be common with the government expense. So how to implement this, it's not very clear. Again, The civil servant minister should also uphold political impartiality. Ministers should not ask the civil servants to do something illegal. Okay, good. That is the only reaction I have. But again, if you're a minister and you don't even ask the civil servant to do something you want, then how good a minister you are, right? The entire point of becoming a minister is to be able to ask the civil servants to do something. But the suggestion is that it should not be done. You should not interfere in the working of the civil servants. Then, Prime Minister and the Chief Minister should have a dedicated office to receive complaints against the ministers. If a common person, let's say you, want to complain against the minister, you should have a number, an email ID where you can approach the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister directly. That is also a suggestion. Prime Minister, Chief Minister should ensure that this code of conduct by the minister is followed, because they are the ones who can keep them accountable. And most importantly, even the coalition partners or the coalition ministers should listen to the Prime Minister. Let's take an example. When Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, it was not just a Congress government. It was a government of Congress, along with, let's say, Trinamool Congress, the Mamata Banerjee party, let's say Samajwadi party, all these were working together. So what happened? If someone from Samajwadi party, let's say, did something wrong, they would not listen to the Prime Minister. That no, he is not our Prime Minister, he belongs to some other party. Even though they're in the same coalition, but they would not listen to that Prime Minister. That is a suggestion that this should not happen. Even the coalition partners should listen to the Prime Minister. Doesn't matter if it's a coalition government, because you're all a part of the same government. That is again a suggestion that the second ARC has given. A few more things before we take a break. We are continuing on the same report of ethics and governance. The same ethics and governance report, as I said, it's extremely important. So we are going into a lot more detail of that. Ethics and governance report also talks about the issue of office of profit. I hope all of you know what is office of profit. You would have read that in Indian polity. The issue of office of profit. What exactly is office of profit? All of you know, right? Perfect. Let me quickly repeat just in very brief terms. If you are a member of the legislature, let's say if you are an MP or an MLA already, along with that, you cannot have any other government job from where you are getting a salary or benefit except being a minister. That will be called an office of profit. So MP, MLA, holding some other post, getting some other salary, getting some other benefit, etc., except being a minister, it will come under the category of office of profit. And in this case, you will be disqualified from being an MP or MLA because you held an office of profit. The problem with the law of office of profit is, as you know, there is no definition of the phrase office of profit in the Constitution. The Constitution mentions office of profit but does not define it properly, that what is office of profit, what is not office of profit, etc. Supreme Court has defined it in some suggestion in some cases, but the Constitution does not have a proper definition. What will be office of profit, what will not be office of profit. So what has the second ARC suggested? The second ARC has suggested that number one, if there is an office which has the right to spend government money, please understand, if there is any authority, any office that has the right to spend government money, then it will be called an office of profit. Any authority having the power to control public fund, spend public fund, spend government money, that will be an office of profit. For example, can a member of parliament become the head of the ONGC? No. ONGC has public funds, government money, you cannot spend it. Can the member of parliament become the head of, let's say, RBI? No, you cannot, because you are spending government money. So basically, if you are in a power, in a position where you control government money, how the government money will be spent, how much will be spent, it should be called office of profit. That is what they suggested, that anyone in the position to spend government money will be called as office of profit. However, there is one exception. Exception is if a minister, let's assume you are a minister of railway, you are railway minister. Within the railway ministry, you might have many organizations working, many departments working. Those should not be called office of profit. If you're a minister, then by virtue of being a minister, you already have power to spend some money on some departments. You already control some money issuing power to some other organizations. That should not come under office of profit. I will repeat, listen to this very carefully. Point number one, any authority which has the power to control public money, to spend government money, any authority like that should be called an office of profit. So MP, MLA should not control that authority. That will be your office of profit. On the other hand, if you are a minister, by virtue of being a minister, within your ministry, you have some departments, you have some bodies which control public funds where your decision is accepted, then it will not be office of profit. But if you are not a minister already and you are controlling some authority, then it will be office of profit. You should not hold that position. That is what they suggested in terms of separation of powers, in terms of office of profit. Someone has asked a question, can they do private business? Yes. See, office of profit does not include private business. Office of profit says being MP and MLA, along with that, you cannot have a government position, a government executive position. That goes against separation of powers. Also, please remember, when you have office of profit, the Parliament of India has the power to make a law to exempt some positions from the office of profit list. I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. When we had the Congress government, when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, there was a lot of talk that Sonia Gandhi, for example, wanted to have more powers than the Prime Minister. Sonia Gandhi did not become the Prime Minister. There were a lot of debates about that Sonia Gandhi wanted to control something like that. Now, what happened was, at that time, what happened was that the Congress government made a new body which was called NAC, National Advisory Committee. Congress government made a new body called National Advisory Committee, NAC. NAC was a super important committee, and the job of this NAC was they will approve the final government decision. It was like they will advise the government, but in reality, it was them deciding on all the government things. Who was the head of this committee? It was Sonia Gandhi who was the head of this committee. So Sonia Gandhi was made the head of the NAC. But then before that, what did the Congress do? They first passed a law in the parliament saying that NAC will be exempted from office of profit. That this is exempted from office of profit. This will not be called as an office of profit. Like Kartikeya has a good question. How is Brij Bhushan MP the head of WFI? Again, exemption. Parliament has the power to exempt positions, exempt certain offices from the definition of office of profit. And they have exempted many of these organizations. For them, that rule doesn't apply. Over here, the rule is simple, that if you have, or their suggestion is simple, if it's a public authority that has the power to spend government money, it should be office of profit. If it is a minister who is controlling an authority within the ministry, then it should not be office of profit. As simple as that. Then, second ARC also suggested that schemes such as MP LED, MLA LED should be abolished. Have you heard of this? MP LED. Have you heard of this? May have heard of this. MP LEDs, Member of Parliament, Local Area Development Scheme. Local Area Development Scheme. Similarly, this is MLA, Local Area Development Scheme. So basically what happens is a member of parliament gets 5 crore rupees every year for development in their area. So they get 5 crore every year, using which they can have development projects in their area. This is the MP LED scheme. The problem is this scheme has not given a lot of success. Means if so much money is being given every year, you should see a lot of development, right? But you don't. One of the reasons is most of these MPs use money from the scheme in those areas where their supporters live. See, the MPs know where is the area from where they get the votes and where is the area from where they do not get the votes. So even their money spending, even their funding is usually discriminatory. They see where exactly should we spend the money so that people are happy, where should we not spend the money. So it has not given so much result as it should be. The suggestion from the second ARC is it should be abolished. During the COVID-19 crisis, it was stopped, but now it has again resumed. Also, second ARC has suggested that MPs, MLAs are or should be declared as public authorities. You have the right to ask questions, or you should have the right to ask questions to them about their work. How much work did they do? For example, how many bills did they introduce? They should have to respond. How many answers did they give? All of these things, because they are getting money from the government, they're getting salary from the government. So the suggestion is that MPs, MLAs should also be called as public authorities, and you should be allowed to ask questions to them. All these are suggestions given by the second ARC. As I said earlier also, these are suggestions that the second ARC have given. You may or may not agree to this. That is absolutely fine. It is not that you have to agree to it. These are suggestions that they have given from their own point of view. You might say, I don't agree to this. You might say, I agree to this. That is absolutely fine. Let me take up a few questions before we take a small break. There's a question from Natarajan. Difference between allocation of business rules and transaction of government rules. Natarajan, it is quite similar. Allocation of business rule basically means which ministry, which department will do which work. So you allocate business. You allocate some business to one department, allocate some business to another department. That is called allocation of business rules. Transaction of business rule is the process how government will work. For example, the process that one person will do this work, and then the file will go from here to here, then the file will go from here to here, how the government departments will run, how the permissions will be given. That will be the transaction of business rules, how the business will be transacted in the government. Then Atharv is asking, can an IAS officer do private business? Yes. An IAS officer can do private business, although there are a lot of restrictions. Restrictions such as it should not interfere with your official work. If it is interfering with the official work, then you may have to give clarifications, etc. You also have to be transparent about that. You have to inform the authorities beforehand. Mostly chief secretary will have to inform them beforehand. But yes, there is no law that prevents the IAS officers from doing private business. But again, if it takes your time and you're not being able to give time to your real government service, there may be consequences. Monto is saying, why judiciary can't implement all recommendations? Monto, only judiciary can tell you the answer to this. So I can't. Let the judiciary tell you. Yuvraj has a question. Please explain NAC again. So Yuvraj, in the Congress government, because the Congress had this idea, they wanted to give one of their members, Sonia Gandhi, a lot of powers, even powers more than the Prime Minister. So they made a body called the NAC, National Advisory Committee, that was supposed to give the final decision, final go-ahead on all the government orders. So it was it was set up as a advisory body to the government that would advise the government, but in reality, it was actually double checking what the government was doing. So Sonia Gandhi became the head of that. The idea was that Congress government now, rather than being run by the prime minister under his control, will be run by NAC, and that NAC could have been an office of profit because again it was an executive position about apart from being an MP. So the government first gave an exemption to this. They passed a law and they exempted the post of the NAC head from the office of profit, and that is how the body got created. Samin is saying during interview, such questions asked why ARCs is not implemented, then what should you say? No, Samin, that question will not be asked because implementing ARC is not in your hands. So your that question will not be asked. Don't worry. Something that is not in your hands. Why would they ask you? Why is it not implemented? You can ask them. Say, you tell me. You are a part of the government. You tell me why it is not implemented. So don't worry. That will not be asked. Uh, then Shai saying, what was the exception in the last point in the previous slide? The exception. There was no exception here. If Sahil, your question is about exception on the office of profit. The exception part was okay. Last one is except when they are deciding the legislative function. So except whatever they are doing in the parliament, how they are voting, what they are speaking, except that part because that is a part of the legislative privilege. Okay, let's take a short break. Please come back at 7:15. We'll resume from here. Basically, how to improve functioning of the police. Functioning of police. How to improve law and order. These are usually the recommendations that come in the category of public order. Now let's try and understand what did they suggest. First important suggestion, have a separate investigation functions and have separate police functions. See, there are a lot of problems in our police system. You read about it, internal security, lack of money, that is lack of salary, no fixed working hours, lack of training, etc., shortage of personnel. All these are real problems that our police system has in India. One other big problem that we may not talk about every single time is this. The same police officer may be expected to go and solve a murder crime. The same police officer may be expected to go and ensure VIP security arrangement. The same police officer may be then asked to go and indulge in an encounter. All these are specialized things. Investigation, especially, is a very specialized field where you need to ensure that people have enough skill, people have enough training. In India, our police has not divided those functions. For example, if you look at American web series, American movies, you will see some of their police officers are called detectives. Have you seen that? Not all, but only some are called detectives. They are police officers. Why? Because again, detectives are those in that police team who have been given the training of investigating a crime. In India, that is not the case. So in US and UK, you will see there are two separate things. Some officers are given training how to solve a crime. Some officers are given training how to catch the criminals, how to ensure that public order is in the safe hands. In India, we have not segregated the functions. That is one suggestion. Now, it is easy to suggest this on paper. See, the easiest thing is to preach, the easiest thing is to give suggestion on any single thing. But the idea here is you will only be able to segregate police when you have enough police officers. We still lag in enough police officer category. We do not have enough police officers that are required for the size of India's country. So if you don't have enough policemen, how can you even think about segregating them and giving them two separate functions? That is still not proper. Another suggestion, Establish state police performance and accountability mechanism. Right now, how the police or how anyone working in the police gets a promotion, it usually depends on the number of years you have served. Promotions or demotions or any action is usually not based on your performance report or how exactly did you do. Or if people, for example, have a complaint against the police, there's not many places where you can go to. You have a problem with the police, where do you go? Where do you file a complaint? You know, police is powerful, you can't go anywhere else. So, what do you do? Suggestion is we should have a new body at the state level called Police Performance and Accountability Commission. The idea of the commission is simple: to fix the accountability of the police, to ensure that the police is accountable, and if they do something wrong, if a complaint has been filed against them, they should be made answerable. That again is a suggestion. Again, you might like it, you might not like it, absolutely your vision, but these are suggestions that they have given. Then, reduce the unnecessary burden on the police. A lot of times, let's say someone becomes MLA, not even MLA, someone becomes a municipal councillor, they win the municipality election. In order to show the world, see, I'm so powerful, they want four policemen around them, two behind them, two in front of them, someone in the side. Why? Because that you think or they think that exudes power. That's a status symbol. A lot of times, police is forced to go on duties where they should not be. There's an unnecessary burden on the police, VIP security, preventing people from or don't know which threat. No one has those threats. No one even know these VIPs, but you are subjected to those duties. There's a lot of unnecessary burden on the police. You ask them to be at places where they are not required to be. You force the police people to work for extra hours time and time again. If you are in the police duty, there is no working hours for you. For example, you know that let's assume that you are sleeping in the night at 2 a.m. You're in the police. You get a phone call that, see, sir, something wrong has happened, please come. Would you say, no, my working hours start at 9 a.m., I will not come? No. There is no time, there is no holiday. You are at home on a Sunday, something wrong happens, you will have to go. So there is a lot of burden anyways on the police. So the idea is don't force them just to be on VIP security where there's nothing that is required of them. We should also improve forensic science infrastructure. What does it mean? See, criminals are becoming smarter every single day. You all watch the news, the kind of crimes that are being committed now, the use of technology, cyber crimes. All of that is a big challenge for the police. The police might not have enough time to get them trained for all these. I'll give you a simple example. And this is a real case of what happened a few years ago. So, a few years ago, there was this girl who filed a complaint to the police, who went to the police saying that she had a breakup with her boyfriend. And now this boyfriend is taking a revenge by posting her personal photos, her intimate photos on Twitter. So this boyfriend is taking revenge. They are putting her photos. So she wants the police to please help her stop this. The question that the police had was, ma'am, what is Twitter? Please tell me first. Now imagine you go to the police to ask for help from the police and they say, what is Twitter? I don't know. What do you expect? You can't blame the police. Someone who is working 18 hours a day, 16 hours a day, they don't have time to go and read what is social media and then update all their skills, right? They should be getting time especially for that. So if you are not aware as a policeman of the new challenges coming up, if you're not aware of the new problems coming up in the crime scene, how can you at the end of the day resolve that crime? In order to resolve the crime, you need to have proper forensic science infrastructure, how to ensure that these crimes are caught, because see, criminals are always staying one step ahead. And if you want to resolve those crimes, the police also has to stay that step ahead. That means you have to invest more in infrastructure for investment and for interrogation purposes. Focus on community policing. What is community policing? There are two things that you have to understand. Imagine this. Let's do a very simple social experiment kind of a thing. If I ask you, what is the first image that comes to your mind when you think of army? And then what is the first image that comes to your mind when you think of the police? Just think about that. The first image that comes to your mind, positive, negative, whatever. In almost all cases, when you think of the army, you have a very positive image in your mind, right? Protectors, guardians of the country, helping us, giving their life. When you think about the police, not really. You think about corruption, harassment. You think about something wrong, right? I'm not saying that they have done something wrong or they have done something right. There are exceptions on both the sides of the story. But again, think of the image that you have, the image that you get. You think, oh, police, there has to be something wrong. Why is that the case? And you may not have that image if you know someone in the police. If someone in the police is your friend, you might not have that image. That is fine. But usually you would see that the image that you get of a policeman is not a very good image or a positive kind of an image. But for the army, you get that. Now, this image that is built up, it is built up for a reason. You can't say, no, this image is wrong. These images are built up for a reason. There's a reason why people think like that for the army. There's a reason why people think like that for the police. What is a suggestion in this case? Suggestion is to focus on community policing. Community policing means the police should engage more with the community. For example, if let's say you live in a society, police should come and have events, let's say have talk with people in the society every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, so that the police actually is in touch with the community and the community is not afraid of approaching the police. A lot of times, people see this as a taboo to even go to the police station. If you go to the police station, your parents will tell you, in our fourth generation, no one has ever gone to police station, and now see you because of you, we have to go to police station, right? That is the dialogue that they will say. What will your grandparents think about it in their grave? What will they think about? So again, the problem here is the idea that police is attached with a taboo that no, going to the police is wrong. Be away from them, right? It is said that maintain a distance from the police, right? People have this dialogue that neither friendship nor any nor having any problem with the police is fine. You have to maintain an equidistance. That is what people say. Now, again, the problem here is when the problem starts, when the police has to approach you, people should have trust in the police. That can only happen if there is community policing. If there is community policing. The other problem, gender sensitization. India lacks women policemen in a great deal, and there are good reasons for that as well. You can't blame the girls or women for this. Every year, the number of I of the number of girls who clear the UPSC exam, not a lot of them have IPS as their top preference. Now, you might say, no, sir, I will do it. Fine, you might be an exception or whatever. But if you look at the past record, the reality is that not a lot of girls usually prefer to go to the IPS, and there are good reasons for that. The result is not even at the top position, and even the bottom positions in the police, you will not see a lot of female officers working. What is the problem here? The problem then becomes that how do you have gender sensitization? When the police comes to arrest a female, they don't even have female officers. The law says you cannot have any arrest of a female without a female officer. But for that, you need to have some female officers, right? If you don't have female officers, then what do you do? How do you keep waiting? That is a big problem. Not just this, there is even a problem in the lockups. Many police stations don't even have lockups for females. So if a female is arrested, they are then forced to stay in the same locker that is for men. That also becomes a problem. When you don't have enough police who are female officers, you have a situation where they don't know how to behave with the other gender. That gender sensitization thing also becomes a problem. Now, many states are working towards this. Like in Madhya Pradesh, now we have a lot of police stations where it is compulsory to have at least one women officer. There are many police stations that are headed by police officers now in Madhya Pradesh, and many of the states are doing this, are trying to change. But again, unless you have enough women in the force, things might not change. Now, the question is, why do we not have enough women in the force? There are various reasons for that. Obviously, the job is not very safe. You all know this. The working condition might not be the most ideal. At least when you are in IAS, foreign service, etc. You are sitting in your office. You know you might have to go outside, but it's not that you will have to go outside in the night every single time in danger. As the IPS officer, you are obviously in danger. Infrastructure is a big problem. Most places you will not see proper segregated women washrooms, etc. That is also a big problem. So these lack of basic amenities obviously push the women away from the forces. Kiran Bedi was India's first women IPS officer. It took so many years for India to have its first women IPS officer. Just imagine that. So it is all a problem of women not being represented enough in the police that leads to a lot of problems when the police deals with female criminals. The next report that we want to discuss is a report on local governance. When you say local governance, you mean to say panchayats and municipalities. Basically, local governance includes panchayats and municipalities. In Indian polity, all of you would have read the chapter on panchayats and municipalities. So all of you are aware of the problems of panchayats and municipalities. I don't have to elaborate on that. As you know, panchayats and municipalities were given a constitutional status by 73rd, 74th Amendment Act. But even then, there are some issues that remain, and that is why we have the second ARC suggesting what should be the solution to this. For example, first, they suggested reforming the appointment of the State Election Commission. Now, if you see, Election Commission of India, it conducts elections for the Parliament of India, for the State Legislature of India, for the President of India, and for the Vice President of India. These are the elections that the Election Commission of India conducts. Then we have the State Election Commission that conducts elections for panchayats and the municipalities. There is no appointment process, there is no qualification criteria given how the State Election Commission will be appointed. It's a one-member commission appointed by the governor. Just like the Chief Election Commissioner at the center before the Supreme Court judgment, the president would just appoint an officer. The name was given by the government. At the state level, the situation remains the same even today. Although the Supreme Court judgment has made changes in the election appointment of election commission at the center level, but at the state level, the election commission still is appointed in the same manner, without any role of the opposition, without any qualification criteria. Whichever officer the state government prefers, that officer's name is given to the governor, and then the governor appoints that person as the state election commission. There is lack of powers and responsibilities given to local governance. You all would have read about this in panchayat and municipalities. It's like saying, as you know, see, in the panchayat and the municipality law that is passed, as you know, the law is divided into two parts. Some parts of the law are mandatory and some parts of the law are voluntary, right? Mandatory means something that the state governments compulsorily have to do. Having elections every 5 years, making sure there is reservation for SC, ST women, making sure that the voting age is the same, making sure 21 years is the age for contesting elections, having Gram Sabha, all those are compulsory. But the real points about money, about responsibilities, these things are voluntary in nature. Means how much money will they be given? Voluntary. The state government decides if they want to give money or not. The state government decides whether they want to give responsibility or not. And many state governments have not done this. It is like your father telling you, make a plan where you want to go on a vacation. and you make a plan, sir, Papa, I want to go to Switzerland, Australia, Europe, whatever. And then you ask him, okay, give me the money for your ticket booking. He said, no money. I just asked you to make a plan. No power, no responsibility. Make a plan, be happy. This is how the panchayats, municipalities are right now. The state governments ask them, make a plan for development, the best plan possible. And when they ask for money, they say, no, no money. Just make a plan, be happy about it. So when you give power of planning and you don't give any money or responsibility, that will not result in anything good. That is what is happening with our local governments right now. Other suggestion, have detailed reports of State Finance Commission. Now, all of you would have read about the Finance Commission of India. As you know, the Finance Commission of India at the center government level gives the recommendations to the center government about how much money to give to which states from their taxes, how much money to give to municipalities also, etc. When the Finance Commission of India gives a recommendation to center government, their reports are in a lot of detail. They don't randomly say, Akkad, Akkad, Bambebo, give this state 500 crore. No, that is not what happens. They have a proper formula that based on population, give this much money, based on income level, give this much money, based on their forest cover, give this much money, right? They have a proper formula for that. They work hard. It's not that they'll randomly decide anything. But in the state finance commissions also give a report to certain states, to many states. This one money to give to municipality, this one money to give to panchayat. There is no formula usually that is used. They randomly said, oh, this looks like a very big city, give them 100 crore. This looks like a small city, let's ignore them. Let's give them 50 crore only. This one, give them more money, they look very happy. So their reports are not detailed at all. Random numbers are thrown out because they also know state government is not going to accept our report anyway. So why to work hard? You're getting a salary, enjoy, as simple as that. Why to work hard when the state government will never going to accept it? That is a problem with the state finance commissions. The state finance commission reports are not detailed at all. So you don't even know what they mean to say when they say give this one money to this panchayat or municipality. What is the argument behind it? At the center level, although the report given by the Finance Commission is not binding on the Government of India, but usually you will see reports given by the Finance Commission of India are accepted by the Government of India, usually. So usually Government of India accepts the center government, accepts the National Report of Finance Commission. At the state level, you will see these reports are usually not accepted. Because the states say we don't have money, how can we give money? The entire issue is about money. Like your parents telling you every time, we don't have money, what do we do? So the same thing the state government says, we don't have money. You ask them for a bike, we don't have money. You ask them for their pretty dress, you don't have money. Ask them for iPhone, you don't have money. Similar is the case with the State Finance Commission. They ask them for money, states say we don't have money. Then, adequate funds should be given, but they don't tell how adequate funds should be provided for the development. Now, another very interesting suggestion they gave was you should increase non-tax revenue. Now, what is non-tax revenue? There are two types of income for the government mainly. There is tax revenue and there is non-tax revenue. Many people assume that the government only earns through taxes. That is not true. Government mainly earns through the taxes, that is tax revenue, but there are other ways also in which the government earns money or may earn money. For example, I'm talking about the lower level, panchayat municipalities, okay? How do they earn money? Through fees, penalty, these kind of things. I'll give you an example of my own. So a few months back, we went on a trip to Wayanad. Wayanad is in Kerala, beautiful city. Lok Sabha member Rahul Gandhi used to be. So we went to Wayanad on a trip and we went to see a waterfall near Wayanad. This waterfall was in the outskirts of Wayanad, so it was in a village. So we went there, we parked the car, and when we parked the car, we were given a parking receipt. On that parking receipt, it was basically the name of the village was written and whatever village, Gram Sabha. So basically, what it meant was that when you go and park a car there, the parking fee is collected by the Gram Sabha, that is a local panchayat. So they get revenue from tourists coming in parking the car. That is an example of non-tax revenue. But not many states allow this. Many states don't allow this. Very few states actually allow the panchayat, especially, or the municipalities to collect this money. Because the state government think that they should get all the money. So in most of the cases, the state governments would go and say, no, no, I should collect the money. But again, it depends on how much power the state governments have given to the panchayats to actually collect these fees, etc. So the suggestion is this non-tax revenue should be increased. I'll give you some more suggestions. It happens in bigger cities, especially Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, obviously. If you go to big markets, you park your bike or you park your car, you have to pay a parking fee that usually goes to municipality. So usually municipality looks into public parking, etc. In big cities, when you have to, let's say, give away your waste of your house, municipality usually comes in and collects the waste. They might charge you some money for that. All that basically is a way of collecting non-tax revenue. But the problem is non-tax revenue is collected in very few areas, very few. Usually in bigger cities only. In smaller cities, why would you pay for parking? It is my city. Why would I pay for parking? I'll park wherever I want. That's what happens usually in smaller cities when you know that nothing will happen. In bigger cities, you have to pay for these parking, etc. So that is why those panchayats, municipalities do earn some money. The suggestion is to increase non-tax revenue, allow all these things. Then also allow borrowing from, let's say, municipalities in limited limits. There are some municipalities in India that borrow money using bonds. See, the government of India borrows money, a lot of money from the market. State governments also borrow money from the market for their development purposes. But somehow, when it comes to municipalities, not a lot of them borrow money or they are allowed to borrow money. Suggestion is they should be allowed to borrow money, like Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, let's say Pune, Bangalore, etc., should be allowed to borrow money from the market, use it for their development purpose, and then repay it. But the problem here is, listen to the problem. When you borrow money, you have to give a guarantee, right? Without the guarantee, there is no one who will give you a loan. Even the governments have to give a guarantee. For example, when the government of India takes a loan, what is the guarantee? The guarantee that they keep is Consolidated Fund of India is the guarantee. When the government of India takes a loan, Consolidated Fund of India acts as a guarantee. When the government of the state takes a loan, then what happens? Consolidated Fund of the state acts as a guarantee and then they get the loan. But what about municipalities? What would they do? They don't have a consolidated fund. That becomes a big problem. If the municipality goes out in the market, says that give me money, I will return you, what is the guarantee that the investors have that their money will be given back? This is where the suggestion is state or the center should support them, should back them. That don't worry, borrow money from the market, we will act as the guarantee. If you don't pay the loan back, we will give it to you. We'll act as the guarantee. But for that, the state or the center has to come up and then has to give the guarantee. That is the suggestion, that the borrowing should be allowed for municipalities, especially who can afford this, so that we can have lesser pressure on the government to give money to panchayat municipalities and they can have their own revenue. Next report is a report on capacity building for conflict resolution. India, unfortunately, has seen a lot of internal conflict ever since our independence. We have seen the insurgency in the northeast. We have seen the Naxalism issue. We have seen Punjab in the worst form of terrorism in 1980s, beginning of 1990s. Jammu Kashmir problem persists even today, partially. So India has seen conflicts of a lot of different types. All these conflicts, how to resolve them, this is a suggestion that have been given. This is again a very commonly asked question in the mains exam, and you can write these suggestions also of how to resolve conflicts. First, negotiation should be given priority. Now, this is something that the government actually does. If you look at the record of the government of India, doesn't matter which party is in power. Look at the record of the government of India ever since our independence. Governments usually try to negotiate. Like when India became independent, at the same time, there was a leader in Nagaland, today's Nagaland, called Fizo. So Fizo was a big leader of Nagas at that time. He declared independence at the same time. He said, India is becoming independent, British are going, so Nagaland is also independent now. Unfortunately, we do not read a lot about Naga insurgency as we read about the Kashmir insurgency. But you talk to any expert, read any books, you will be told that Naga insurgency was even more dangerous than the Kashmir insurgency. The government had a very, very hard time in controlling the Naga insurgency. And it's not just about Nagaland, it was about a lot of other states in the northeast. To the government's credit, whichever government was in power at any point of time, you have to give credit to the government that they have always been in constant touch with these leaders, encouraging them to join politics, contest elections, and then bring a change, whatever they want. Negotiations have always been given a priority. I'll give you another example. You might have heard of Assam Accord. Assam Accord, which is related to today's NRC or Citizenship Amendment Act. Assam Accord was this entire movement in 1980s in Assam that outsiders should be thrown out. The leaders of Assam Accord that you see today are MLAs, MPs in Assam. All of them have become a part of the politics. So government was able to convince them to come and join politics rather than just attacking them, because attacking someone will lead a very bad impression on the people because they have thousands and lakhs of followers and the government does not want to take a chance. Negotiations have always been given a priority and this continues even till today. Grishma, capacity building means building your strength to fight against something. That is capacity building. Then enhanced protection for senior functionaries. See, this is especially related to the Naxal problem in India. Especially to the Naxal problem in India. I have a suggestion for all of you. Don't follow it right now, but when you are done with your preparation and you have some time in your hand, and if you like reading books, I will suggest you a book to understand the Naxal problem in India. It's a very good book. The name of the book is Hello Bastar. It's written by an author called Rahul Pandita. Very good book that tells you a lot of the problems related to Naxal movement in India, how it started, what are the complications, why is it such a difficult problem to resolve, what is the side of the government, what is the side of the Naxal leaders, what do they think, what do tribals think, etc. It's a very, very good book. But again, not a part of the syllabus, so you can read it but later on, but try to read and understand how it actually is. Now, if you look at the Naxal problem in India, again, I will not go into deep of Naxal problem. It's a part of your internal security, so I'm not going to go there. But again, if you see the Naxalism issue in India, the Naxal problem in India, there is a pattern that Naxalites have always targeted those who are working for the government at the higher levels. The entire ideology of Naxalism is based on the idea that government or anyone working for the government is the enemy. They believe that government and anyone working for the government is trying to take over their land, is trying to exploit them, etc. What they do is they mainly target senior level officials. There are many DMs and collectors that have been kidnapped by people living in the Naxal areas, the Naxalites. Many politicians have been attacked. You have seen all of that. So the suggestion is that we should give increased protection to senior functionaries. Because if someone very high up in the government is attacked, the morale of common people actually declines. Common people think, oh, if the government can't protect their officers, how will they protect me, right? That is the first thought that comes in the minds of the people. So the government should give much more protection to the senior functionaries. Then also increase the capacity of security forces, give them better weapons, give them better infrastructure to fight against the Naxals. Let me ask you a question. Uh, how do Naxals get the money? They have so many weapons, right? They have bombs, etc. How do they get the money to buy weapons and bombs? What do you think? There has to be some source of revenue that Naxalites actually get. Local support, organized crime, looting, smuggling, stealing from police. Police doesn't have anything. What will they steal from the police? Okay, I'll tell you. There are two big ways in which they get the money. There are two big ways in which they get the money. Try and understand the two big ways. First big way, it has been now proven, it has now been proven that countries such as China and Pakistan have supported them. It has been, and even sometime Myanmar also have supported them. How? When, let's say, security forces have an operation against Naxals and they are killed, when we capture their guns, their weapons, they are usually made in China, made in Pakistan. So there's enough proof that they get support from outside India. One, that is something that we can't stop on our own. But there's one thing else from where they get money. Only very few people answered this correctly. The other thing where they get the money is, if you look at the area where Naxalism still exists in India, mainly Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, a bit of West Bengal, you might say, a bit of Andhra, you might say. This is what? This is an Odisha in some cases. This is what? This is the mineral belt of India. This is the mineral belt of India. Basically, if you see the areas which are under Naxal control, a lot of these areas have a lot of minerals. So what these Naxal leaders do is, illegally they take out the minerals and then they sell it in the market. That is the biggest source of their revenue. Yes, you can talk about extortion, kidnapping, that is separate. That is not in that big of a scale. But the biggest way in which they get money, they keep on getting money, is by illegal mining of those minerals. Because it is all in the mineral belt where they are where they have captured this area. So they have a lot of money to buy weapons, guns, they get help from outside as well. If you want the police or the military personnel to fight against them, to control them, the government has to increase the capacity of the military forces as well. Not just this, you also have to, as per the second ARC, sensitize the police and paramilitary personnel. This is a big problem. See, a lot of police in that area has been accused of not behaving well. I'll give you a story. Again, I think I have read the story in Hello Buster book only. So Rahul Pandita gives a story. This is all a real story. There were tribals living in a tribal village in this area, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand. They were attacked by some outsiders. They were forced outside their house. They were forced to leave the land because people wanted to extract minerals. Then these people, these tribals, went and complained to the police. Rather than the police listen to them, police beat them up. Police captured some of the girls of those tribal families. Police raped those girls. Now imagine the point of view of that tribal. His or her land was taken away by powerful people. He went to the government officers, police to get help, and what was done? He was beaten up, the girls were raped. Now imagine the mindset of that tribal. What would he be thinking? That is the government on his side or is the government on someone else's side? Think of the point of view of the tribal towards the police. I'm not saying every policeman is like that, but I'm saying if even if one policeman does it, think about the news that spreads all across the village that see this is how the police is. Now, this is where you have to understand that sensitizing the police is extremely important, and also paramilitary personnel. See, let's say there is a lot of CRPF soldiers that are deployed in that area. Now the problem is in the CRPF, let's say you are deployed in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand area, but they are not from that area. So Jawans from Himachal, Jawans from Sikkim, from Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Punjab, Gujarat, Rajasthan, they are deployed in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand. So they don't know the history of that area. They don't know the problems that people are facing. So their way of dealing with the problem or dealing with the local people might be very different. That is why they should be given proper training to make them understand the issues on the ground. That why is it that people behave in this way? Why is it that the people are angry against the police? Why is it that the people are attacking them? So that they have the context before they work there. One other suggestion is to learn from greyhounds. Now, what is greyhound? Let's try and understand that. So, this is the logo of greyhounds. Now, let me try and explain what is greyhound, what is the issue here. A lot of times the police forces or the security forces are not able to control the Naxals or capture the Naxals because the problem is Naxals or tribals, they have been living in forest all their life, very, very dense forest. So they know where to hide in the forest, where to run, where to go. The police doesn't really know that, they're not familiar with that area. They can hide very easily. So what Andhra Pradesh did was Andhra Pradesh formed a special unit within their police called the Greyhounds. The specialty of this police was they employed people in this police from the locals who are living in that area. So locals who are not a part of Naxals, they were asked to come and join the police. They were given the training so that they could now lead the police and make sure that they can actually capture the Naxals who are hiding in the forest. And they have become extremely, extremely successful. Greyhounds have become a primary example of how Andhra Pradesh has been able to capture many Naxals and they have been able to control the problem. Now, again, if you read about the history of Naxalism in India, I will not go into detail because again, this is not a part of internal security. But if you go into detail of Naxalism in India, you will find out, although the word Naxalism comes from a village in West Bengal called Naxalbari, but the Naxalism as an ideology, it did not start in India from West Bengal. If you look at where is it that the first group of leaders of these ideological thinkers came in India after independence, they were from Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh was regarded as the first place that had leaders who were first influenced by this ideology going on in China and Russia, and they brought this idea to India. So Andhra Pradesh was seen as a kind of the beginning spot where all these leaders were. So for Andhra Pradesh to be able to control and capture all the Naxals is very, very, very impressive. That is why the Greyhounds have been extremely important and have been extremely successful. Apart from that, another suggestion is to strengthen the local level police stations, give them better weapons. The weapons that police has is much more outdated, much older as compared to the weapons that the security for that the Naxals have. We need to invest more, strengthen the police officers. Other part is that we have to also make sure that the implementation of Scheduled Tribe Act, etc., is working well. Now, please try and understand this. One of the real problems that we have when it comes to why is it that people in the tribal area especially protest against the police. Think about the tribals from their point of view. They have been living in the forest area for many, many decades. For them, land, forest is everything to them. They are dependent on the land, but most of them do not have official paper to show they are the owners of the land. So what happens? Someone comes in, someone forcefully removes them from the land. They don't have proper paperwork to prove that they are the owners of the land. The government of India in 2006 passed this law called the Forest Dwellers Act. The Forest Dwellers Act was that the government of India will give proper ownership to tribals who are living in a certain area for many generations. So there are tribals who are living in for many generations in a certain area. They will be given a proper paperwork that yes, you are the owners of this land. No one will remove you. But that law has not been implemented well. The problem in India is never the lack of laws. The problem in India is always that the laws are not properly implemented. Lack of implementation of this law has resulted in tribals getting even more angry with the government. If the government implement these laws in a proper manner, they would even be able to convince people to join the side of the government. Swati, dwellers means who live in a certain area. Like if I ask you, where do you dwell? Where do you dwell means where do you live? So your address will be the answer to where do you dwell. So dwellers means those who live. Then, as we discussed, illegal mining is a basic way, is the most prominent way in which these Naxals get the money. So ensure that illegal mining is stopped. Ensure that anyone who is engaging in illegal mining, those who are helping the Naxals in to sell the minerals in the market, that should be stopped. And they suggested having specialized government agency like BRO in place of contractors. Very, very, very important. See, the problem in the Naxal areas, it's a vicious circle. Understand this. The tribals say that government is discriminating against us. We don't have any roads. The government has not built any hospital in our area. The government has not built any school. They don't like us. Government says that when we send someone to build roads and hospital, then you attack that person. So no one wants to come in your area. It's a vicious circle. Who came first? Who came later on? The the people living in the tribal areas say no. Government is not sending anyone because they don't want our development. Government has not set up any telecom towers. Government doesn't want our children to go to school. Government has not built any roads. Government says that whenever the contractor goes, you start attacking them. So how will the contractor go? The idea that they have given the second ARC is rather than asking the contractors to build infrastructure or roads in these areas, have specialist government organization like the BRO. BRO is Border Road Organization, not bro. Border Road Organization. So basically, Border Road Organization is one of the most successful organizations of the government. As the name suggests, it builds infrastructure in our border areas. The reason why we have been able to build so many roads and so many of these highways, the reason why you can dream of buying a Royal Enfield and going on a trip to Ladakh is because of them. If they would not have made those roads, your dream of having a Royal Enfield bike and going to Ladakh, it all would have gone down the drain. It is because of them that you can take that dream and then never go after taking the dream. It is because of your bro. So basically, they build the roads in very dangerous areas. So they know a threat. They know how to deal with the threat and along with that do their work properly. So why not utilize their service only in these difficult areas rather than depending on the contractors having BRO etc. to come in and help them out. That is again a suggestion from the side of the government. Then they also suggested, the second ARC, some recommendations on how to resolve water disputes in India. Now, India unfortunately has a lot of water disputes because we don't have enough water. As simple as that. India doesn't have enough fresh water. Our population is increasing. We require more water, but we don't have enough sources. There is always a fight between different states when it comes to water. The Kaveri water issue, long-standing dispute, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu are involved. Look at the Satluj Yamuna Canal issue, Punjab, Haryana, they are involved. Look at Godavari, look at Mahanadi. All these are issues that are still pending in different states in India because, again, the simple issue is we don't have enough water and we have a lot of demand for water. How do we solve these issues? That is a recommendation that they have given. First, be more proactive in interstate water dispute, meaning that the government of India should take up all the issues rather than waiting for the states to start complaining. Be more proactive rather than actually thinking that, oh, let's see if our issue comes up, we will try to solve. No, be more proactive. Let's make a list of all those rivers that go from one state to the other, and then try and see if there is an issue that needs to be resolved. The government should be more proactive rather than waiting for these issues. And see, these water issues are very serious. You might say, oh, this is not a big issue. They are very serious issues. People have lost their lives. People have committed suicide for these issues. Do you know that? You look at the Kaveri issue, Kaveri water issue between. So Kaveri is a river from Karnataka to Tamil Nadu, even Kerala and Puducherry has a part of the Kaveri river, but mainly the issues between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka only. Because Kerala, Puducherry don't have enough water. Anyways, water is mainly shared between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Farmers have committed suicide when they thought they are not getting enough water in the Kaveri river. So it's a long standing issue. And these are examples that you see all around. So it's a very serious issue. In the Constitution of India, we have Article 262. What is Article 262? Article 262 talks about interstate water disputes. Interstate water disputes. It says that if we have an interstate water dispute, means dispute between two or more than two states, the parliament will make a tribunal for that. Parliament has the power to make a tribunal. These cases will not go to the Supreme Court. This is one of the few things that do not go to Supreme Court. These cases will be resolved, or these issues will be resolved by tribunals and not to the Supreme Court. Now, the problem in India is there is a loophole for everything. Although Article 262 says tribunal will decide it and the matter will not go to Supreme Court, even then the matter does go to Supreme Court because of two big loopholes. There are two big loopholes because of which the matter does go to the Supreme Court. I'll tell you those two big loopholes. First big loophole, with an example. Let me tell you the first big loophole. So what happened in the Kaveri water dispute? In the Kaveri water dispute, the tribunal was appointed. They gave the decision after many decades. They gave the decision. When they gave the decision, Karnataka was not happy. They said, no, we can't give so much water. We don't have so much water, etc. So they did not implement the decision for a long time. Because the loophole is, by what time do you have to implement the tribunal decision? There is no clarity on that. So tribunal gave a decision, Karnataka government never implemented it. So Tamil Nadu government went to Supreme Court. Why? To get the decision implemented. Late Jayalalitha was the chief minister then of Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu government went to Supreme Court against Karnataka government not to change the tribunal decision, but to get it implemented, which Karnataka was not doing. That is the first way in which you can go to Supreme Court as a loophole here. Second, another big loophole. People have gone to Supreme Court saying, sir, I am not getting enough water. This is a violation of Article 21. This is a violation of right to life. This is a matter of my fundamental right. Because they have read M. Lakshmikant a bit too carefully. So they go to Supreme Court. People have gone to Supreme Court saying that, oh, I'm not getting enough water. And you have said water is a part of my life. So because the river Kaveri is not giving enough water to me, now I'm going to Supreme Court. Supreme Court should hear the matter. These are loopholes that have been found. That is why you pay lawyers a high fee to find those loopholes, right? Yes, Atharv, that is why we pay you a fee. So the problem here is that when you have a situation like this, when you find loopholes and then you start going to the court, it just elongates the process and it defeats the entire purpose of Article 262. Because if you keep finding loophole, going to the court, what is the purpose of having Article 262 anyway? So the suggestion is, everyone, judiciary and the governments together should decide we will follow Article 262, not find loopholes. That is a suggestion. Then, every river in India should have a river basin organization. For every river, make a committee kind of a thing, organization kind of a thing to handle those rivers, so that whenever they have an issue about the rivers, this organization should look into this. At the national level, each of these organizations should be a member at the national level. Again, an idea that has not been accepted. I'll repeat. Every river should be given its own kind of an organization, river basin organization. And all these rivers, which are interstate river, go from one state to the other. These rivers, if they have an issue, the first point of contact should be these river basin organizations. Their members should be a part of a national organization also, so that their issues can be resolved easily. That is a way to resolve the issues. Also, there should be a national water law. Now, this is interesting. Water is a state subject. Water is a state subject. But interstate water is a union subject. So if there is a river within one state, then the government of that state will make the law. But if the river is going from one state to the other state, it becomes a union subject. The suggestion is the union government should create a water law that can include a lot of things about sharing of water, about utilizing water, so that these issues should not go very long. Has this been accepted? Obviously not. See, the reason why this has not been accepted is, understand, water or any extremely touchy issue, governments usually don't do anything about it. Governments usually stay away from this. And I'll tell you why. Let's take a simple example. Basically, the current government has to decide, or there are applications being filed on the rights of transgenders. Let's take a simple example. There's a big debate about the rights of transgenders, or let's say same-sex marriage. There are debates about that. In 99% cases, you will see that the government will not take any action in these cases. Why? Because, and it doesn't matter whichever government is in power, they will not take any action. I'll tell you why. Because the government knows in these kind of cases, doesn't matter which kind of a law they make, yes or no, they will make some people angry. The government knows it. This is it's a polarizing issue. Polarizing issue means someone will always get angry. Arey, what did you do? You should not have done this. So governments usually remain silent on these issues. What do they do? For example, remember the issue of homosexuality in India, that homosexuality was a crime. Government did not do anything. They kept quiet. They will not say anything. What they do is they wait for the Supreme Court to take a decision. They let the Supreme Court decide. So that when the Supreme Court decides, the government can say, we did not do it. Blame the Supreme Court for that. We did not do it. So that the Supreme Court does not really, or the government does not really have to choose between losing voters and not losing voters. Like homosexuality was decriminalized by the Supreme Court, not by the government. Similarly, with this same-sex marriage, similarly with this transgender right, you will not really see the government taking a decision 99% of the times. No government wants to touch these issues because they know they will make some people angry, and they just leave it. They think, oh, let the Supreme Court decide. Supreme Court doesn't have to face elections anyway, so they don't have a problem. We will not decide anything. That is how the governments usually think. Water, again, is that kind of an issue. If the government makes a law on water, they know some government of the state, some people will be very angry. So we will not make a law. Let the Supreme Court do what they want. We will not do anything. Now, coming to the most interesting report for all of you, which you should be concerned about. This is called Recommendation on Refurbishing of Personal Administration. In simple terms, it's a report that talks about how to reform the UPSC exam and selection of the aspirants. So be ready. What are the recommendations? Let's see what the second ARC has thought, and let's see what do you think about this. First recommendation: establish something like National Institute of Public Administration. Now, what do you mean by this? Let's say you are in class 12th, 11th, and you already decided that I want to become an IAS officer. At least I want to prepare to become an IAS officer, right? So today, what do? You join any course in the college so that you don't have to spend a lot of time in college, and you spend all your time in preparing, either coaching or self study or whatever. But you don't pay attention to your college. You do a correspondence course or anything like that, so that you don't spend any time there. You spend all your time in preparation, right? So your college degree gets wasted, or your college is wasted, your fees is wasted, etc. The suggestion is, why not have a college where you take admission and you are taught these things only: polity, history, geography, economics, for 3 years. We will call them National Institute of Public Administration. At the end of it, you will get a degree also, and you can prepare, and then you can write the exam also. So that at least it's not that you are studying something else in college and giving some other exam later on. Obviously, it's not that you have to compulsory get into this college for preparation. You can do your own preparation, but that is the idea. The problem here is, as many people say, that there is no backup, etc. Those are kind of options, but those can be handled later on. That is an idea that they have suggested. Have colleges, have institutions where these kind of things only will be taught, so that you can prepare simultaneously. Again, not accepted. Then, a very controversial idea, which I'm not sure how many of you will support. They have suggested reducing the number of age and number of attempts. According to them, if you are from the general category, your age limit should be 21 to 25 and only 3 attempts. If you're from OBC category, according to them, age limit up to 28, up to 5 attempts. SC/ST, physically handicapped, 6 attempts only, up to 29. That is their suggestion. You might or might not agree to this. At least I will tell my point of view. I agree to this. I agree to this 100%. That should be the case. Maybe you don't agree to this. It is fine. Don't worry. It is not going to happen. It is almost impossible for the government to take away something from the people after they have given them. That is why we still have reservation. You can give something, but you can't take it back. So it will not happen, and I'll tell you why it will not happen. Lakhs and lakhs of people prepare for UPSC every year. You can't randomly say now you can't give the exam. The only way in which it can be implemented, the only possible way is government, for example, can say that we will implement this by 2030. Let's say 5 years later, 7 years later, so that next 5-7 years you can do whatever you want. But after that, we'll implement that. That is the only way. Otherwise, government cannot do that randomly. Don't worry, it will not happen. Now, coming to the point of why I agree to it. Why I agree to it, I'll tell you why. I tell every one of my students, UPSC is not your life. UPSC is a part of your life. I don't advise anyone to give 6 attempts of UPSC. I advise everyone, when you start preparing, make up your mind how many attempts you want to give depending upon your situation. 2, maximum 3. But if you are from that category that no, I have to become an IAS no matter what, I'll keep giving attempt, good on you, you do it. But my suggestion, I never tell anyone give more than 2-3 attempts, because I'll tell you why. You are losing out on the most precious years of your life. When you are in your 20s, you are at the best stage of your life. You can learn a lot of new things, any new skill you can develop. You have a lot of things that you can actually do. You can switch your sides, anything. By the time, let's say you are 32, in the general category I'm talking about, let's say by the time you are 32, and God forbid you still don't clear the exam, then when you have to change your field, you can still change your field, but then you will be much, I would say, much farther as compared to people of your age. You spend your entire 20s just preparing for this exam, working extremely hard. Now, when you join something at the age of 32, you will have a lot of responsibility on you. You will not be able to take a lot of risk. You will join at a lesser salary as compared to most of the people of your same age. So switching then becomes very difficult. I'm not saying people don't do that, people jump to good places, all that is fine. There are always exceptions. People go for MBA, etc. People have a backup option, etc. All is fine. But I do not think any exam in the world deserves to take up more than 3 years of your life. Your life is too precious to just keep on reading the same thing time and time and time and time again. My suggestion to everyone has always been, no matter you are my student or not, please give yourself a time limit that this is the time that I will give to myself. Clear the exam, great. If I don't clear the exam, to hell with the exam, I'll do something else. Because when you are in your 20s, you can do a lot of great things. You can jump to any sector, you will do very well. I had a student, a girl student, I think 4 years back. She gave a couple of attempts. She was planning to give the third. I told her, please don't give the third attempt. She prepared for CAT. She joined IIM Indore, passed out of IIM Indore. I mean, great. She has a great job right now. Very happy with her life. No issues at all. So this is why I support this. Again, you might not support this because you are in that stage of preparation. I'm sure you may not support this. Maybe after you're done with preparation, you will also be enlightened like the Gautam Buddha, and then you will support it. So again, it depends upon you. But don't worry, government is not doing this right now. It will not happen. So you don't have to worry about that. Then another issue or another suggestion that they gave, maybe have the prelims and mains exam together. Why? See, the problem, or I won't say the problem, but the unique part of UPSC exam today, which is not something that you see in other exams, is it has an entire 1 year cycle. Let's say you give the prelims in May, then in September you have the mains exam, then Jan, Feb you get the interviews. Final result, by the time it comes in, it will be again April or May for the final result. So it's an entire year cycle. Now imagine a guy who gave the exam here, wrote the mains, gave the interview. On the day of the result, he finds out he is not selected. So you start the entire cycle once again from here. It's an entire 1 year cycle. That is a problem. Look at other exams, banking, CAT, SSC, any exam that you think of, they don't have a 1 year cycle. It takes a lot of time, and that becomes a big problem. So the suggestion is, maybe let's have prelims and mains exam together. How? See, what you study in the prelims, most of those are the things that you have to study in mains. There are some extra subjects, optional, IR, world history, ethics, etc. But 80%, more than 80% is the common part, right? So why not have prelims and mains together? After 4 months, have the interview and then the result. So you can cut down the cycle to 6, 7 months rather than 12 months. That is a suggestion. But the problem is you can't implement it. I'll tell you why. Right now, how many people qualify in the mains exam? About 14, 15,000. So 14, 15,000 students, their copies are checked by UPSC. You can't have lakhs of people writing the paper because you can't check their answers. That is not the infrastructure that UPSC has. So number one, you can't have all the people give the mains exam. That is not possible. Other way in which it can work is, only way is, maybe you can have an online prelims exam. Why? See, when you give an online exam like banking, when you end the paper, right then on the screen you get the score. And your heart is either broken or you are very happy. But you get the score right then and there. So if UPSC exam, for example, let's say in the prelims becomes online, you will get the result right then there. Next day, UPSC can tell you you are passed or not passed. After 10 days, have the mains exam. That is one suggestion. But again, doing the exam online also is not that easy. It's not like a banking exam where you can have different set of questions. The questions have to be the same. Infrastructure has to be arranged. It's a difficult thing. So it is not going to happen. Again, don't worry. None of these suggestions are happening right now, at least in your timeline of preparation. So you don't have to worry about that. That's a suggestion that they have given. Another thing that many of you might not know this, if you join a state civil service exam, let's say you clear the UP PCS, Rajasthan PCS, Kerala PCS, etc. You become a PCS officer. As per the rules, if you're a PCS officer, after you complete 10 years, you can transfer or you can be promoted to IAS level. That is the rule. You complete 10 years in the PCS. After 10 years, you can apply to UPSC internally. They will just take an interview and then they can transfer you to the IAS level. That is a rule. But that rule is not followed. There are PCS officers who have worked in the PCS for 15 years, 20 years, but they don't get a chance to get transition to IAS level. Many of them have even gone to high courts, but nothing has happened. The suggestion is the rule should be followed properly. People who are working at the state level, they should be able to transition. Now, why does it not happen? Why is the rule not followed? See, the IAS lobby is very, very, very powerful. People who are IAS officers are very, very powerful. They have a very closed group, for example. They don't want an outsider coming in and becoming an IAS because they think this is their tag. You can't share a tag with everyone. So they make it very difficult for any outsider to come in. They don't want outsiders coming in and taking these positions. So it is usually the IAS officers that don't encourage the government, or they basically create roadblocks to have this transition. The suggestion is that it should happen in order to make it more diverse for the people who come in the IAS. We have a couple of more reports to go, but I will end it here for today. I don't want to rush into it. From here, we will be discussing tomorrow. We'll have just a couple of more reports to go. In the last 5 minutes, I'll be happy to take your questions. Let me know your questions from here. We'll begin tomorrow. Okay?